Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year Dirk won MVP.
Work that we did on the floor and a brotherhood. You know, Kyrie became like a little brother to me, and just to help him mature into a championship caliber player, man.
Yo, what's Kenny the Jet? Shout out to Hooper's Voice, yo. What up, what up, what up, what up?
About the Spurs culture is the people that they had is what made up the culture, and that's a combination.
Rozier, man. Here checking in. I need to follow Hooper's Voice.
I'm saying basketball. I got what? No way, man. It's a girl school, man. I'm playing basketball. Yeah, lack of what?
There just hasn't been any statements.
Oh, okay. They haven't really spoken out. Okay, cool.
Some, you might have had some expectations. You might not have. What's your thoughts and opinions?
I didn't really have any expectations of GB specifically. I think there's a lot of people, companies, beautiful to see. I don't really pay attention to those that don't. Relevant.
See, I'm actually going to chime in on this because I am in the know when it comes to the governance and talking to the powers above. I can tell you for a fact right now that the British Basketball Federation in itself has 0 full-time staff. 0. Like, they have no staff. Like so I was saying that when it comes to speaking up on matters and so forth, like I gave a friendly nudge to the BBL and because I know when it comes to looking at, like, so the way I see it is being in Scotland, like I said, a lot of people just don't see it. Like, they just, because they're not experiencing it, they're not around it. So then you get a friendly nudge like, this actually exists, this is happening, now you're trying to help educate. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know this was happening. So I use the example of people who fundraise for cancer, right? It doesn't usually really happen until you have someone in your family who's now being affected by cancer. And then all of a sudden, it's in your peripheral, the awareness is there and you do everything in your power. For a lot of people, they're just not around race. They don't understand. So, for them, it's just like, oh, wow, this is a huge shock to me. It's not a shock to us, but it's a shock to them, you know what I mean? So I was saying that from the BBF perspective, look, I understand you've got no staff, right? There's no one there, but something still needs to be said because, and it's kind of like, okay, wait a second. So I did the same with Basketball England. And the thing about Basketball England, which I really respected, was the coaches are then reaching out, wanting to speak up, because a lot of people are just scared to speak. They think, oh, if they say the wrong thing, or they say this, they say that. So you get on a Zoom call like this, I'm talking to coaches and they're asking questions. And I've said, like, the main thing for me is the whole empathy piece, right? There's no one's ever been offended by asking it, are you okay? Is this affecting you? Can you tell me a little bit more? No one's going to get offended, but there's a fear that if they say something, they're going to get judged or this, that, and the next thing. You know what I mean? So I said there's a communication barrier. And this doesn't, for me, it doesn't just come down to a race thing when it comes to the whole British basketball thing in general. It comes down to a player thing and respecting players. I think there's a whole duty of care piece that is missing that they forget because they're in this struggle about fielding a team and getting this, getting that they forget about. There's no exit meetings or how you doing it, or what, like right now you're furloughed, you've got no job in the summer, how are you feeling? Like there's none of that. It's like on to the next thing because you have to get ready for the next season. And I've realized in a lot of other sports they actually have like player care. There's people who are on the phone talking to players. How are you getting on? How's your situation? I see that you're out of a job right now. We have nothing like that at British basketball at this moment in time. And again, it comes down to funding because there's no money. So who's going to do that? Who's going to step up into that role and be that person? Like Joe Prunty tried, as a coach, he actually reached out to some people and spoke to some people in this. But the only people he spoke to were the people that he was telling to speak to, because they didn't know that the basketball community was as big as it was. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's like you're left out. Like when I said, when I retired from GB, I felt that kind of sense of, I just realized that you're a commodity. You know what I mean? And that you know, once you're not a part of the system, who cares about you anymore? What you're doing? You know what I mean? And maybe that was in my mind, but then it had to be a little bit more proactive. Like, look, wait a second here. You know what I've done for this sport? Like, where's my opportunities? What do I need to do? What do I need to work on to get to this, and this? And then they started listening. So I think sometimes it's just, instead of just attacking, it's sometimes it's like, okay, why are they being silent? You know what I mean? Is it because of this or because of that, or just because they're not aware? So I always give people the benefit of doubt when it comes to those situations. And what I've realized is a lot of people are just unaware. And we talk about educate yourself, right? How many people actually go and educate themselves in every single situation? Like, does everyone know about what's going on in China? No, you don't. Because it's not a part of your life. Why should you? You know what I mean? There's only a certain few people who are actually going and actually educating and finding a little bit more about this and a little bit more about that. But right now it's affecting us. So it's something that we're really, really passionate about. And we don't understand why other people are not as passionate. You know what I mean? And I think that's where the balance breaks, because when you look at the basketball population in British League or in any league, 70% of their cohort are of colour. So they have to take notice of that. And that's one thing that you may come to, that they're just unaware because of, you know, and I could ramble on all day. I apologise, but I just, like I said, I've just been tired, man. Like I'm constantly having to bang on doors, have to do this, and what I'm realising, it's not just about colour. It's about just the players in general. Like, there's not enough care. You know, there's not enough people thinking, like, what about the players? How are they feeling? You know what I mean? It's like, because they're so warped in protecting their own teams and surviving. Because everyone's in survival. British basketball is survival mode for everybody. It's not about what else can I do. It's surviving, and it should never be that way. It should never be that way. But yeah, I apologise.
No,
That's real.
to add to what Kieron said, I think there's also a big cultural disconnect as well. I mean, like Kieron said, majority of the league is black players, you know. Probably 85-90% of the league, and the people that control the league, the one that control GB, are old white men. Like, let's just keep it real, you know. So there's no cultural connect, you know. There's probably an age disconnect, and like Kieron said, you know, people don't really sympathize with situations or events that aren't affecting them directly, you know. So I don't know, maybe there needs to be a meeting or a sit down, you know, and educate these people, because if people aren't coming out and making statements about, you know, Black Lives Matter or police brutality or, you know, injustice within the court system and the prison system, you know, it just shows a lack of respect and a lack of understanding. So,
and I think there has to be.
I think they're definitely.
I go above that. It's
Sorry,
not even
go on.
conversation that I think the governance structure has to change. I
Definitely.
wholeheartedly believe that in British basketball there should be a player arm to that, and that's the players. And you know what? See, from the players' arm, it doesn't have to be the same players. It could be voted in by all the other players who are voting for the players who are going to be representing. Because that's like any situation that I've been in, any successful country that I've seen federation has a strong player presence as well. You know what I mean? And that's something we're lacking. Like, we don't have it. It's non-existent. We don't have a voice, and that voice needs to be heard in some way, shape, or form. And you know, if there's not going to be a players' union, at least from a player council or something, you know, just to kind of make sure there's a push.
Yeah.